Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the main screen. After 18 months in deep space, they had finally reached Kepler 442b. This was humanity's first attempt to establish a colony outside their own solar system. "Scanning shows breathable atmosphere, Captain," said Dr. Lisa Parker from her science station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as data flowed across her screen. "Oxygen levels are good. Temperature ranges look comfortable. Lots of water and plant life." Jake nodded and turned to his engineer. "Tony, how are our systems?" Tony Rodriguez looked up from his console with a grin. "Everything's running smooth, Captain. The ship's ready for landing procedures whenever you give the word." Dr. Amanda Foster, their medical officer, checked her readings one more time. No dangerous bacteria or viruses detected in the atmosphere. Samples. Looks safe for human contact. Security Chief Ben Carter stepped forward. "I still think we should be more careful, Captain. We don't know what's down there." Jake understood Ben's concerns, but they had come too far to turn back now. Earth needed this colony to succeed. Resources were running low back home, and this planet offered everything humans needed to survive. "Take us down, Tony," Jake ordered. "Find us a good landing spot near that large forest area." The ship descended through the atmosphere with a gentle rumble. Through the windows, they could see vast forests of purple and silver trees, crystal clear rivers, and mountains that sparkled in the alien sun's light. It was more beautiful than any place on Earth. They landed in a clearing beside a wide river. The landing was smooth, and within an hour, the crew was breathing alien air for the first time. It smelled sweet, like flowers mixed with clean rain. "This place is amazing," Lisa said, taking readings with her portable scanner. "The plant life is incredible. I'm seeing species that shouldn't be able to exist, but here they are." Amanda knelt beside a stream, testing the water. "It's clean, safe to drink. This planet could support millions of humans." Ben remained alert, watching the tree line for any signs of movement. "Stay together, everyone. We don't know what kind of animals live." Here, they set up a basic camp and began their exploration. For 3 days, everything went perfectly. The planet seemed like paradise. The weather was mild, food sources were abundant, and they found no signs of dangerous predators. On the 4th morning, everything changed. Jake was reviewing their survey reports when Tony called out from the perimeter. "Captain, you need to see this." They all gathered around Tony, who was pointing toward the forest. Walking out from between the trees came beings unlike anything they had ever seen. They were tall, at least 8 feet in height, with bodies that seemed to be made of living crystal. Their skin reflected light like diamonds, and they moved with a grace that seemed impossible. "First contact protocol," Jake said quietly. "Nobody make any sudden moves." The alien beings approached slowly. There were 5 of them, led by one that seemed taller and more ornate than the others. When they were about 20 feet away, they stopped. The leader stepped forward and, to everyone's surprise, spoke in perfect English. "Greetings, travelers from the distant stars. I am High Counselor Veltara of the Zephyrian people. We have been watching your arrival with great interest." Jake stepped forward carefully. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. We come in peace, seeking a new home for our people." Veltara's crystalline features seemed to shift into what might have been a smile. "Peace is good. Your people are young, but show promise. We have learned your language from your transmissions that reached our world many cycles ago." Lisa whispered to Jake, "Their technology must be incredibly advanced to decode our radio signals." "We welcome peaceful visitors," Veltara continued. "Your species is new to us, but we sense no malice in your intentions. Would you honor us by witnessing our most sacred ceremony?" Jake looked at his crew. This was exactly the kind of opportunity they had hoped for. We would be honored. Excellent. Tomorrow, when our sun reaches its highest point, we perform the ritual of the sovereign beast. It is our most important tradition, performed only once each season. Amanda stepped forward. What kind of ritual is it? Veltara's expression became reverent. We honor the Krexther, the great beast that rules this world. It is the apex predator, the supreme hunter, the untouchable guardian of our planet. Number. Being in the known galaxy has ever successfully hunted one. They are beyond the reach of mortal creatures. Ben frowned. How big is this thing? Larger than your flying vessel, Veltara replied, with armor that cannot be pierced and claws that can split stone. The Krexther has ruled this world for millions of years. Even our advanced technology cannot harm it. We can only honor it and hope it shows mercy. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. A predator larger than their ship that couldn't be killed by advanced alien technology. Is it dangerous to observers? The ceremony is safe, Veltara assured them. The beast is contained by energy fields during the ritual. It has been done this way for thousands of years without incident. That night, the crew discussed what they had learned. Lisa was excited about the scientific opportunity. Amanda was curious about alien biology. Tony wanted to see their technology. Ben remained worried about safety. I don't like it, Ben said. A creature that size that they say can't be killed? What if something goes wrong? Jake understood his concern, but they needed to build good relations with the Zephyrians. We'll be careful. If anything looks dangerous, we retreat immediately. The next day, the Zephyrians led them to a massive amphitheater carved from living rock. Hundreds of Zephyrians had gathered, their crystal bodies creating a rainbow of reflected light. In the center was a cage made of glowing energy bars. Behold, Veltara announced, the Krexther approaches. The ground began to shake. Trees at the edge of the amphitheater bent and broke as something massive moved through the forest. The sound was like thunder mixed with the roar of a dozen lions. Then they saw it. The Krexther was a nightmare made real. It stood 30 feet tall at the shoulder, with a body longer than a blue whale. Its hide was covered in armor plates that looked like black metal. 6 legs, each as thick as tree trunks, ended in claws the size of swords. Its head was enormous, with jaws that could swallow a car whole and teeth like spears. The beast's eyes glowed red as it entered the energy cage. The Zephyrians began to chant in their musical language, and the creature seemed to calm slightly. Beautiful, Lisa whispered, even though her face was pale with fear. The ceremony continued for an hour. The Zephyrians offered gifts of food and flowers to the beast, which ignored them completely. The energy cage held firm, and everything seemed to be going according to plan. Then disaster struck. A power surge, perhaps caused by the creature's electromagnetic field, caused the energy cage to flicker. The Krexther sensed the weakness immediately. With a roar that shattered crystal formations around the amphitheater, it smashed through the failing energy barrier. Chaos erupted. Zephyrians screamed and fled in all directions as the massive predator charged into the crowd. Its claws tore through the crystal beings like they were made of glass. Several Zephyrians fell, their light fading as they died. Run, Veltara shouted. At the humans, flee while you can. Nothing can stop the Krexther when it is enraged. The alien crowd scattered in complete panic, abandoning the amphitheater to the monster. The Krexther stood in the center of the destruction, roaring its dominance to the sky. Jake and his crew found themselves alone, facing a creature that an advanced alien civilization considered unstoppable. The beast's red eyes fixed on them, and it began to move in their direction. What do we do now, Captain? Tony asked, his voice tight with fear. Jake looked at his crew, then back at the approaching monster. Every instinct told him to run, But something else stirred in his mind. A thought that would have horrified the fleeing Zephyrians. "We figure out how to kill it," he said. The Krexther stood 50 yards away, its massive head swinging back and forth as it studied the 5 humans. Blood dripped from its claws where it had torn through the Zephyrian crowd. The creature's red eyes seemed to glow with intelligence, as if it was deciding whether these small beings were worth its attention. "Back away slowly," Ben whispered, his hand moving toward the sidearm on his belt. "Don't make any sudden moves." Jake kept his eyes on the beast while speaking quietly. To his crew, "Tony, what kind of weapons do we have on the ship?" "Standard security rifles, some construction tools, and the welding equipment," Tony replied, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "Nothing designed to take down something that big." The Krexther took a step forward, and the ground shook under its massive weight. It lowered its head and sniffed the air, trying to understand what these strange creatures were. "Lisa, did your scans pick up any weaknesses in its anatomy?" Jake asked. Dr. Parker pulled out her scanner, trying to keep her hands from shaking. As she took readings, "The armor plating covers most of its body, but there are gaps at the joints. Behind the front legs, at the neck joints, and possibly at the base of the skull." "How thick is that armor?" Amanda asked. "At least 6 inches. Of what looks like organic metal. Our standard weapons won't even scratch it." The beast roared again, a sound that made their teeth ache. Several Zephyrians were still visible in the distance, watching from behind crystal formations. They seemed frozen with terror, unable to believe that anyone would stand their ground against the Krexther. "We need to get back to the ship," Ben said. "Regroup and figure out a plan." Jake nodded. Everyone moved backward toward the forest. "Don't run, but don't dawdle either." They began a slow retreat, keeping their eyes on the creature. The Krexther watched them go, but seemed more interested in investigating the amphitheater where the ceremony had taken place. It sniffed at the offerings the Zephyrians had left, then swept them aside with one massive claw. 20 minutes later, they were back at their landing site. The New Horizon sat in the clearing like a metal island of safety. They quickly gathered inside the ship's conference room. "All right," Jake said, looking around the table. "The situation is clear. We have a 30-foot-tall killing machine loose on this planet. The aliens are too scared to deal with it, and it's probably going to keep killing until someone stops it." "Captain," Amanda said, "maybe we should contact Earth for instructions. This is way beyond what we're equipped to handle." "The nearest Earthship is 6 months away," Jake replied. "By then, this thing could have wiped out the entire Zephyrian population. Besides, if we can't handle one large predator, how are we going to establish a successful colony here?" Tony leaned forward. "What exactly are you suggesting, Captain?" Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he looked up with a determined expression. "We're going to hunt it." Ben nearly choked on his coffee. "Hunt it? Captain, this thing is the size of a building. The aliens say it's never been killed by anyone." "The aliens also ran away from it instead of fighting back," Jake pointed out. "Look, I grew up in Montana. My father and grandfather were hunters. I know that every animal, no matter how big or dangerous, has weaknesses. We just need to find them and exploit them." Lisa pulled up the scan data on the main screen. "If we're serious about this, we need to understand what we're dealing with. The creature appears to be a reptilian predator, but it's unlike anything in Earth's fossil record. Its muscle structure suggests incredible strength, but also significant weight. It's probably not very fast over long distances." "What about its behavior?" Amanda asked. "From what I observed, it seems to be a solitary hunter. It relies on size and strength rather than pack tactics. It's also territorial. It didn't chase the fleeing Zephyrians very far before returning to mark its territory." Tony stood up and began pacing. So we're talking about hunting something that weighs as much as a freight train, has armor plating, and claws that can cut through crystal. Don't forget the teeth, Ben added grimly. Jake studied the data on the screen. Lisa, you said it's not fast over long distances. What about stamina? Hard to say for certain, but creatures that large typically have high energy requirements. It probably needs to rest frequently and eat substantial amounts of food. An idea began forming in Jake's mind. What if we don't try to fight it head on? What if we use persistence hunting? Amanda looked confused. Persistence hunting? It's an ancient human hunting technique, Jake explained. Instead of trying to overpower prey, you chase it until it's exhausted. Humans are among the best long-distance runners in the animal kingdom. We might not be as fast as other predators, but we can keep going longer than almost anything else. Ben shook his head. That works on deer and antelope, Captain. This thing could step on us. But it can't step on all of us at once, Jake said. We work in teams. Keep it moving. Never let it rest. Eventually, even something that big will get tired. Tony's engineering mind started working on the problem. We'd need communication equipment to coordinate between teams, and weapons that can actually penetrate its armor. What kind of weapons? Lisa asked. I could modify the plasma cutters from the machine shop, Tony said thoughtfully. Turn them into spears or projectiles. They're designed to cut through metal, so they might be able to penetrate at the joint weaknesses Lisa identified. Amanda looked worried. This is incredibly dangerous. One mistake and we're all dead. People have been hunting dangerous animals for thousands of years, Jake replied. Our ancestors brought down mammoths and cave bears with nothing but sharpened sticks and teamwork. Ben considered the plan. If we're really going to do this, we need to scout the creature first. Learn its patterns, find out where it sleeps, what it eats, how it reacts to different situations. Agreed, Jake said. We spend the next day observing from a safe distance. Lisa, I want detailed behavioral analysis. Tony, start working on weapons. Amanda, prepare medical supplies for injuries. Ben, work out tactical formations. Dr. Parker pulled up a map of the local area. The creature seems to have claimed the amphitheater and the surrounding forest as its territory. There are several elevated positions where we could observe safely. What? About the Zephyrians? Amanda asked. Shouldn't we try to coordinate with them? Jake thought about High Counselor Valtara and the other aliens who had fled in terror. They've had thousands of years to develop ways to deal with this creature, and their solution is to hide from it. I don't think there'll be much help in a hunt. Over the next several hours, they prepared for what might be the most dangerous undertaking in human history. Tony worked in the machine shop, modifying plasma cutters into spear points and creating projectile weapons. The sound of welding and grinding filled the ship. Lisa studied every piece of data they had about the Krexther, building a profile of its likely behavior patterns. Ben planned approach routes and escape paths, thinking like a military tactician. Facing an overwhelming enemy, Amanda prepared medical supplies and emergency procedures, knowing that any injury during the hunt could be fatal. As evening approached, Jake stood outside the ship, looking toward the forest where their prey waited. The Krexther's roars echoed across the landscape as it marked its new territory. Captain, Lisa said, joining him outside. I've been thinking about what you said earlier, about every animal having weaknesses. What did you find? The Krexther's armor is heaviest on its back and sides, but it's much lighter on its underside. If we could somehow get underneath it, Jake smiled grimly. Then we'd have a target worth aiming for. In the distance, they could see the flickering lights of the Zephyrian city. The aliens were probably holding emergency councils, trying to decide whether to flee the planet or hide until the beast moved on. None of them would understand what the humans were planning. In their galactic experience, intelligent species ran from apex predators. They didn't track them down and kill them. "Tony's finished with the first batch of weapons," Ben reported, approaching them. "They're not pretty, but they should punch through armor at close range." Jake nodded. "Tomorrow, we start tracking. By the end of the week, either we'll have solved this planet's predator problem, or we'll be its latest victims." "Any regrets about not running away like the aliens did?" Lisa asked. Jake looked up at the alien stars, thinking about humanity's long history of facing impossible odds. "Our species didn't get where we are by running from every dangerous animal we encountered. If we can't handle one oversized lizard, we don't deserve to be here." The hunt would begin at dawn. The hunt had lasted 3 days. 3 days of tracking, chasing, and wearing down the massive Krexter through the alien forest. The creature was exhausted, bleeding from several wounds, and finally cornered in a rocky canyon with no way out. Crouched behind a boulder, breathing heavily as he gripped the modified plasma spear Tony had crafted. His clothes were torn, his face was covered in scratches, and every muscle in his body ached. But his eyes burned with determination. "Teams 2 and 3, are you in position?" He whispered into his radio. "Team 2 ready," came Ben's voice from the canyon's left side. "Team 3 in position," Tony replied from the right. Dr. Parker's voice crackled through the communicator from her observation post above. "The creature is showing signs of severe exhaustion. Heart rate is elevated. Breathing is labored. This is our best chance." For 3 days, they had pushed the Krexter beyond its limits. The beast had tried to rest dozens of times, but every time it settled down, one of the human teams would appear to harass it with projectiles and noise, forcing it to move again. The humans had taken turns, working in shifts so that some could rest while others kept the pressure on. The Krexter had tried everything. It had charged them repeatedly, only to have the humans scatter and regroup. It had tried to ambush them, but the humans' communication equipment allowed them to warn each other of danger. It had even tried to leave its territory, but the humans had herded it back using coordinated movements. Now the great beast stood in the center of the canyon, its massive chest heaving as it struggled to catch its breath. Its red eyes darted back and forth, looking for escape routes that didn't exist. For the first time in its long life, the apex predator was afraid. "Amanda, how are you holding up?" Jake asked into his radio. Dr. Foster's voice came from her position near the canyon entrance. "Medical supplies are ready. I've got everything prepared for emergency treatment if this goes wrong." Jake took a deep breath and made his decision. "This is it, everyone. Remember the plan. Ben, start the distraction." Security Chief Carter appeared at the left side of the canyon, shouting and waving his arms. The Krexter turned toward the noise, its massive head swinging around. As it did, Tony emerged from the right side, carrying one of the larger plasma weapons they had constructed. The creature was confused, turning back and forth between the two humans. Its exhaustion was clear now. Movements that had been lightning fast 3 days ago were now slow and clumsy. "Now!" Jake shouted. He sprinted from behind his boulder, running directly toward the creature's left front leg. The Krexter saw him coming and tried to bring its claws down, but Jake was too fast. He rolled under the massive limb and came up on the other side, the plasma spear in his hands. The beast spun around, trying to follow Jake's movement, but the turn exposed its right side to Tony. The engineer fired his plasma weapon, the energy bolt striking the creature behind its front leg where the armor was thinnest. The Krexter roared in pain and rage. Ben took advantage of the distraction to move closer, firing his own weapon at the creature's other front leg. The beast was now wounded on both sides, dark blood flowing from the plasma burns. But the Krexter was far from finished. With a desperate burst of energy, It lunged toward Ben, jaws open wide enough to swallow a man whole. Ben threw himself sideways, barely avoiding the massive teeth. The creature's lunge put it off balance, and Jake saw his opportunity. He ran toward the beast's lowered head, the plasma spear raised above him. The Krexther tried to lift its head, but it was too slow. Jake drove the spear deep into the gap between armor plates at the base of the creature's skull, exactly where Lisa had predicted the weakness would be. The plasma tip burned through tissue and bone, reaching the brain. The Krexther's roar cut off abruptly. Its massive body shuddered once, then collapsed to the canyon floor with a crash that shook the ground. The apex predator of Kepler 442b was dead. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then Jake heard cheering from his team's radios. They had done it. They had killed the unkillable beast. Is everyone all right? Jake called out, pulling the spear from the creature's skull. All good here, Ben replied, getting to his feet and brushing dust from his clothes. No injuries, Tony added, lowering his weapon. Lisa's excited voice came through the radio. Incredible. The readings show complete cessation of brain activity. It's definitely dead. Amanda arrived a few minutes later, her medical bag in hand. She looked at the massive corpse in amazement. I can't believe we actually did it. Jake nodded, but his mind was already moving to the next problem. We need to contact the Zephyrians. Let them know the threat is over. Actually, Lisa said, climbing down from her observation post, I think we have other visitors first. She pointed toward the canyon entrance. A group of Zephyrians was approaching cautiously, led by High Counselor Veltara. Their crystalline faces showed expressions of shock and disbelief. Greetings, honored humans, Veltara said as they drew near. We witnessed your battle from afar. How is it possible that the Krexther lies dead? Jake wiped sweat from his forehead. Teamwork, persistence, and the right tools for the job. The Zephyrians gathered around the massive corpse, their musical voices rising in what sounded like prayers or lamentations. Several of them were actually weeping, their tears looking like liquid diamonds. You do not understand, Veltara said. Turning to Jake, this creature was sacred. It was the eternal guardian, the untouchable force of nature. In all our recorded history, across all the worlds we know, no apex predator has ever been successfully hunted. Well, Tony said with a tired grin, I guess there's a first time for everything. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for years to come. Instead of treating the dead Krexther with reverence or fear, Jake turned to his crew and said something that made the Zephyrians' crystalline hearts skip beats. All right, team. Let's get this thing cleaned and dressed. We're going to need food for the next few weeks, and there's enough meat here to last us months. The aliens stared in horror as Amanda, drawing on her medical training, began examining the carcass to determine the best way to butcher it. The muscle structure is actually quite similar to Earth reptiles, she said, running her hands along the creature's flank. This should be excellent protein. Amanda's right, Jake agreed. Tony, can you rig up some cutting tools? We'll need to process this quickly before it spoils. Tony nodded enthusiastically. I can modify the plasma cutters again. Should be able to slice through the meat easily enough. Veltara stepped forward, her voice trembling. You ... You cannot mean to consume the sacred beast. It is forbidden. It is unthinkable. Jake looked at her with genuine confusion. Why would it be forbidden? We killed it. It's fresh meat, and we need food. Seems wasteful to just let it rot. But it was the apex predator, another Zephyrian protested. The supreme hunter. The untouchable guardian. Ben shrugged as he helped Tony set up the cutting equipment. It's not untouchable anymore. Now it's dinner. The next few hours were a masterclass in human practicality. While the Zephyrians watched in mounting horror, the human crew efficiently processed the Krexther carcass. Amanda directed the butchering, with scientific precision, identifying the best cuts of meat and explaining the nutritional value of different organs. Tony rigged up a makeshift grill using parts from their equipment, while Lisa took samples for analysis. "The protein content is exceptional," she reported. "This meat is actually more nutritious than most Earth animals." Jake seasoned the first steaks with spices from their supplies and placed them on the grill. The smell of cooking meat filled the canyon, and the Zephyrians backed away as if the aroma itself was dangerous. "This is madness," Veltara whispered. "They are consuming the unconquerable force of nature as if it were common prey." Ben took the first bite of grilled Krexther and nodded approvingly. "Tastes like chicken, but with a slightly fishy flavor. Not bad at all. Could use some hot sauce," Tony commented, chewing thoughtfully. Amanda made notes in her medical log. "No adverse reactions to consumption. The meat appears to be perfectly safe for human digestion." As the sun set over the alien landscape, the human crew sat around their makeshift campfire, sharing stories and eating steaks cut from the galaxy's most feared predator. They laughed and joked, treating their victory as just another successful day at work. Meanwhile, several Zephyrians had activated long-range communication devices, broadcasting images of the scene to other worlds. Across the galaxy, dozens of alien species watched in shock as the humans casually devoured what they considered an unstoppable force of nature. "Pass the salt," Jake said, cutting another piece of meat. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency session of the Stellar Alliance began 3 days after the footage reached the Galactic Communication Network. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall on the neutral world of Harmony Station. The mood was tense, fearful, and confused. Chancellor Vexnari of the Etherian Council called the session to order with a voice that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Fellow beings of the galaxy, we face an unprecedented situation. A new species has emerged from the outer rim, and their actions challenge everything we understand about the natural order." On the main viewing screen, the now infamous footage played again. Humans laughing around a campfire, eating steaks cut from the Krexther while Zephyrians watched in terror. The recording had been viewed billions of times across dozens of worlds. Senator Throx of the Drakmari Empire stood up, his reptilian features twisted with interest rather than horror. "Chancellor, with respect, perhaps we are overreacting. These humans displayed tactical skill and courage. They could be valuable allies." A chorus of protests erupted from the assembly. The gentle plant-like Verdani swayed their branches in distress, while the aquatic deepeling's translator devices buzzed with anxiety. Valuable allies? High Counselor Veltara spoke from her position in the Zephyrian section. These creatures devoured the sacred guardian as if it were ordinary prey. They showed no reverence, no understanding of the spiritual significance. They treated the apex predator like food. Ambassador Quantal of the Mechanical Collective processed the data with electronic precision. Analysis indicates that humans possess persistence hunting capabilities far beyond any previously recorded species. They exhausted a creature with superior strength and armor through coordinated endurance tactics. Chancellor Vexnari nodded gravely. The concern is not their hunting ability alone. It is their attitude. Every civilized species in our records has learned to coexist with apex predators through avoidance, appeasement, or relocation. These humans simply killed it and ate it. The footage continued playing on secondary screens throughout the hall. Jake Morrison cutting into the Krexther steak while making casual conversation. Tony Rodriguez adjusting the makeshift grill. Dr. Parker taking scientific readings of the cooked meat. "They showed no fear," whispered Dr. Solani of the Pacifist Coalition. Even our bravest warriors would have fled from such a creature. These humans stood their ground and planned its destruction. Senator Throx leaned forward, which is exactly why they could be useful. My military advisors are already discussing potential cooperation agreements. A species capable of eliminating apex predators could solve problems we have faced for millennia. Problems? Chancellor Vexnari asked. The blood maws of Terminus 7, the crystal hunters of the shattered worlds, the void serpents that prevent colonization of the nebula sectors. Throx's voice grew excited. We have written off dozens of worlds because their apex predators make settlement impossible. These humans might change that. High Counselor Valtara stood up, her crystalline form reflecting light throughout the chamber. Honored representatives, you do not understand what we witnessed. After killing the Krexther, the humans did not celebrate. They did not honor the creature's strength. They immediately began planning how to preserve the meat for future meals. She activated her personal recorder, and Jake Morrison's voice filled the assembly hall. We should smoke some of this meat, the human captain was saying. Tony, can you rig up a smoker? This stuff might last us months if we preserve it properly. The recording continued with Dr. Foster discussing the nutritional benefits of different organs while Ben Carter joked about opening a restaurant when they got back to Earth. The effect on the assembly was immediate. Several representatives began making distressed sounds in their native languages. The Verdani's leaves rustled with anxiety, while the Deepling's water containers bubbled frantically. They speak of the supreme predator as if it were livestock, Dr. Solani said faintly, as if killing apex predators is normal behavior for their species. Ambassador Quintel's mechanical voice cut through the noise. Further analysis of human transmissions indicates this behavior is indeed normal. Historical records show humans regularly hunted and consumed large predators on their home world. Creatures called bears, lions, sharks, and others that would be considered apex predators on most worlds. Impossible, breathed Senator Throx. No world could sustain intelligent life with such aggressive predator management. Yet Earth does, the Mechanical Collective representative replied. And according to their databases, human population has grown to over 8 billion individuals. Chancellor Vexnari called for order as the assembly erupted in discussion. Please, honored representatives, we must decide how to respond to this development. The debate that followed would reshape galactic politics. Some species, like the Drakmari, saw opportunity. Others, like the Pacifist Coalition, saw a threat to the established order. The Mechanical Collective simply saw an interesting data point. We must establish formal contact, argued Senator Throx. Learn their methods. Perhaps form an alliance. We must quarantine their sector, countered Dr. Solani. Such aggressive behavior could spread to other species. High Counselor Veltara raised her hand for attention. Honored representatives, the humans have already established communication protocols with my people. Captain Morrison has expressed interest in meeting other galactic species. This news caused another wave of discussion. Several representatives looked terrified at the prospect, while others seemed intrigued. What exactly did this Captain Morrison say? Chancellor Vexnari asked. Peltara activated another recording. Jake's voice was calm and professional. We appreciate the Zephyrians' hospitality and would welcome the opportunity to meet other spacefaring species. Earth is interested in peaceful trade and cultural exchange. We have much to offer the galactic community. Such as what? Dr. Solani asked nervously. The recording continued. We understand many worlds have dangerous wildlife that prevents colonization or development. Our people have extensive experience in wildlife management and could provide consultation services. The assembly fell silent. Wildlife management. Consultation services. The humans were offering to solve galactic civilization's oldest problem, as if it were a simple business opportunity. Senator Throx was the first to speak. They are offering to hunt apex predators for other species, as a commercial service. They cannot be serious, Dr. Solani protested. The risks are enormous. What if they fail? What if their methods damage local ecosystems? Ambassador Quintal accessed his databases. Probability calculations suggest human methods would be effective against most known apex predators. Their persistence hunting strategy exploits a weakness present in large predator species across multiple biomes. Chancellor Vexnari considered the implications. If these humans can indeed eliminate apex predators safely, they could open up vast areas. FOR colonization and development. But at what cost? Dr. Solani asked. The spiritual and ecological balance of worlds could be destroyed. The debate continued for hours. Representatives argued about everything from safety protocols to philosophical implications. Meanwhile, more footage from Kepler 442b continued to arrive. The latest recordings showed the human crew conducting what they called a barbecue using Krexther meat. They had invited several Zephyrians to join them, though none had accepted. Jake Morrison was giving a presentation about sustainable hunting practices, while Tony Rodriguez demonstrated various cooking techniques. "Look at them, High Counselor," Veltara said as the footage played. "They have turned the death of our world's most feared predator into a social gathering." But not all the news from Kepler 442b was about eating. Dr. Parker had published a scientific paper analyzing the Krexther as biology and suggesting methods for managing similar creatures on other worlds. The paper had been downloaded millions of times in just 3 days. More troubling were the reports that other human vessels were heading toward known apex predator worlds. Earth's colonial fleet was apparently treating the Krexther incident as proof that their expansion plans could proceed without regard for dangerous wildlife. They are not seeking to avoid apex predators, Ambassador Quintal observed. They are actively seeking them out. Senator Throx smiled, showing sharp teeth. Excellent. My government would like to hire their services immediately. The session ended without a formal resolution, but the die was cast. Some species would embrace humanity as problem solvers and allies. Others would fear them as disruptors of the natural order, and somewhere in space, more human ships were traveling toward worlds that had been considered uninhabitable for thousands of years, their crews eager to test their skills against new kinds of dangerous wildlife. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans said they could solve any problem, they meant any problem at all. 6 months had passed since the first Krexther fell to human hunters. The colony on Kepler 442b now thrived with over 300 settlers. Their town built near the crystal-clear river where the New Horizon had first landed. The colonists had learned to farm the alien soil and had even domesticated some of the smaller, local animals. But the most remarkable change was the complete absence of dangerous predators in the settled areas. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed administrative building, watching his people go about their daily lives without fear. Children played in gardens where deadly creatures had once roamed. Farmers worked fields that had been hunting grounds for monsters. Just months before, another contract request came in this morning, Dr. Parker said, joining him at the window. She now served as Earth's primary xenobiology consultant. Her reports on alien predator management circulated throughout the galaxy. The Verdani want used to clear the thorn stalkers from their agricultural moon. Jake nodded. That's the 15th request this month. How many teams do we have available? 7 hunting teams are currently active across different sectors, Lisa replied, checking her data pad. Ben is leading a group on Drakmari Prime, dealing with their sandworm problem. Tony finished the Crystal Hunter extermination on Harmony 7 last week and is heading to the Nebula colonies next. The expansion of human hunting services had exceeded everyone's expectations. What started as a single colony's survival necessity had become the galaxy's most requested service. Worlds that had been written off as uninhabitable for centuries were now being settled and developed. And Dr. Foster? Jake asked. She's established the Xenobiology Research Center on Earth, Lisa said with a smile. 3 universities are now offering degrees in interstellar predator management. Amanda's training the next generation of hunters and field medics. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Jake activated the communication system, and High Counselor Veltara's crystalline features appeared on the screen. "Greetings, Captain Morrison," she said, her tone much warmer than their first meeting. "I bring news from the Stellar Alliance Council." "Good news, I hope," Jake replied. "Indeed. The Council has voted to formally recognize Earth as a galactic partner species. You are invited to establish an embassy on Harmony Station." Jake raised his eyebrows. 6 months ago, half the galaxy had wanted to quarantine humanity. Now they were being offered full diplomatic status. "That's quite an honor," Jake said. "What changed their minds?" Veltara's expression became thoughtful. "The Battle of Terminus 7 changed everything." Jake remembered the reports. A massive space-dwelling creature called a void leviathan had attacked a Drakmari colony ship. The beast was the size of a space station, with tentacles that could crush starships and hide so thick that military weapons couldn't penetrate it. "Your hunting fleet's response was remarkable," Veltara continued. 47 human ships working together to bring down a creature that had terrorized shipping lanes for decades. The footage of your people celebrating afterward, while eating void leviathan steaks, convinced even the most skeptical council members. Lisa laughed softly. "I still can't believe they managed to grill something that size." "Neither can we," Veltara admitted. "But the results speak for themselves. Shipping traffic through the Terminus sector has increased by 300% since the creature's elimination." A new voice joined the conversation as Tony Rodriguez appeared on the screen via split transmission from his ship. His face was grimy but cheerful, and behind him, crew members were processing what looked like enormous insect parts. "Captain, you're going to love this," Tony said enthusiastically. "We just finished clearing the Hive Lords from the mining asteroid belt. Turns out they taste amazing when you smoke them properly. The Mechanical Collective wants to hire us to clear 3 more systems." Jake shook his head in amusement. Tony had developed something of a reputation as the galaxy's premier exotic meat chef. His cooking videos were apparently very popular among human colonists, though they horrified most alien species. "Any casualties?" Jake asked. "None from our teams," Tony replied, "though we did have to rescue a collective survey ship that got trapped in a nest. They're offering us a bonus for the rescue." Veltara observed the conversation with fascination. "Your people speak of hunting creatures that have threatened galactic civilization for millennia, as if it were routine work." "Well," Jake said thoughtfully, "I suppose it is becoming routine. Our people have always been good at adapting to new environments and dealing with local hazards." Another transmission joined their conversation. Ben Carter's face appeared on screen, his security chief insignia replaced by the emblem of the newly formed Galactic Pest Control Service. "Captain, we've got a situation developing in the Outer Rim," Ben reported. "Long-range sensors are picking up something massive heading toward the Pacifist Coalition worlds." The readings matched descriptions of an ancient devourer from their historical records. Jake felt his pulse quicken. Ancient devourers were legendary creatures, supposedly planet killers that appeared once every few thousand years. Most species considered them forces of nature, like hurricanes or earthquakes. "How big?" Jake asked. "Approximately 1 kilometer in length," Ben replied. "The Coalition is evacuating their core worlds and asking for immediate assistance." Veltara looked shocked. Captain, you cannot be considering hunting an ancient devourer. They are beyond the realm of mortal creatures. Even our most advanced civilizations simply flee when they appear. Jake was already running calculations in his head. A kilometer-long creature would require coordination between multiple hunting fleets, but it wasn't impossible. Just very difficult. Ben, what's our available force strength? Jake asked. I can coordinate with Tony's fleet and mobilize the reserve. Hunting groups from Earth. We could have 60 ships and 1,200 hunters in position within a week. Lisa was accessing her xenobiology databases. Ancient devourers are essentially massive space whales. They feed on stellar plasma, but supplement their diet with organic matter from planets. The key would be disrupting their feeding process and forcing them into an exhaustion state. Just like persistence hunting, but in space, Tony added with growing excitement. We could coordinate harassment runs while they're trying to feed, force them to expend energy chasing us instead of eating. Veltara watched this planning session with amazement. You are actually discussing hunting a creature that has destroyed civilizations. Well, Jake said with a slight smile, someone has to. And humans have never been good at running away from problems. Over the next hour, they coordinated the largest hunting operation in human history. Ships from across human space would converge on the outer rim to face a creature of legend. Military vessels would provide support while specialized hunting teams executed the actual takedown. As the planning session concluded, Veltara remained on the communication channel. Captain Narration, she said quietly, when we first met, I believed the Krexther was the ultimate predator. Then your people showed us otherwise. Now you plan to hunt the ancient devourer itself. Is there any creature in the universe that humans would consider too dangerous to face? Jake considered the question seriously. Probably not, he admitted. It's not that we're fearless. We just don't see any problem as unsolvable. Every creature, no matter how big or dangerous, has weaknesses. You just need to find them and figure out how to exploit them. And if you fail, then we learn from the failure and try again with better tactics. Jake's expression became determined. But we don't give up, and we don't run away. That's not who we are. 3 weeks later, the galaxy watched in amazement as 60 human vessels successfully coordinated the takedown of the ancient devourer. The operation took 4 days of continuous pressure, but eventually, the massive creature succumbed to exhaustion and coordinated plasma lance strikes. The victory celebration was broadcast across the galaxy. Human crews gathered on the creature's carcass, which was large enough to serve as a temporary space station. They had invited representatives from every species to join them for what they called the ultimate barbecue. Dr. Foster, now head of the Interstellar Predator Management Academy, gave interviews explaining how ancient devourer meat could feed entire colonies for years. Tony Rodriguez demonstrated proper preparation techniques for different cuts, while Ben Carter discussed tactical innovations developed during the hunt. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his flagship, looking out at the celebration taking place on the ancient devourer's back. Human children from the colony ships were playing games while their parents shared meals with alien diplomats who had overcome their horror enough to try the exotic cuisine. Personal log, Captain Morrison, he said into his recorder. 6 months ago, we were just trying to establish one colony on one planet. Today, humanity serves as the galaxy's pest control service, and we've just proven that there's no such thing as an unkillable creature. He paused, watching a group of young Zephyrians tentatively try their first taste of ancient devourer steak under the encouraging guidance of human colonists. The universe keeps throwing bigger and more dangerous creatures at us, and we keep figuring out how to turn them into dinner.